In the last couple of days, Turo has announced a handful of policy changes that could have a pretty big impact on Turo and how hosts operate on the platform. Some of these changes are extremely welcome, and I think they'll be hugely beneficial to hosts and the platform as a whole, and others will definitely end up having some negative impacts on hosts throughout the entire country. So in this video, we're going to be talking about these different policy changes that have happened in the last couple of days, what we should expect from these changes, and when they will ultimately go into effect. So let's get started. Now, Turo in the last couple of days have sent out a handful of different emails to hosts letting them know of policy changes that they will be implementing in the next few months, and in some cases in the next few days. One of these policy changes I think will be a rude awakening for many hosts throughout the country. But before we dive into that one, I first want to talk about the good, and then we'll go into the bad a little bit later on in this video. So the first set of announcements that Turo made is in regards to host tools and changing the way that hosts can run their business to make it more efficient, effective, and really more data-based. Now, the very first part of this blog post is titled Features and Improvements to Boost Host Efficiency. And basically in this two-paragraph spiel, it talks about how if you are a Turo host and you're an entrepreneur, you're busy, your time is valuable, and you deserve resources to help you run your fleet more efficiently in a more time-efficient manner. Then if we scroll down, you can find the first change that is coming to the Turo platform, and this section is titled Elevating Hosting with Host First Navigation. Basically, what this change is going to be is Turo is going to separate the host and the guest side of the platform. Now, this is something that's going to be really helpful. It's something that Airbnb and Outdoorsy already offer, and I feel as though Turo is kind of long overdue with this. Now, what this means is that if you are somebody who hosts on Turo, meaning you have a bunch of cars, you rent them out, your view of Turo and the app and the resources and the tools is the same as a person who has never hosted a car before and only used Turo from a consumer basis. The reason why this is important is because if you are a host, your needs of what you need out of the Turo platform are going to be vastly different than if you're just a casual renter. So it makes sense that they would separate these two categories out and provide different resources for each type of profile, a renter and a host. In fact, it even shows us what this could look like here in these screenshots that Turo provides. You may notice that the bottom is a little bit different. So we'll have a trip, inbox, vehicles, business, and then whenever you click more, it will take you to a handful of other resources, including legal support, how Turo works, tax information, and then it'll also give you the opportunity to switch to guest mode from there. If you go to guest mode, it looks very similar to what it currently looks like, where you can go from favorites, trips, inbox. It's very similar, just a few tweaks here and there. And you can see the real difference in the menu bar right here in the screenshot Turo provides, and you can see how this will change from guest mode to host mode. Now, like I mentioned, I think that this is a welcome change, though I will admit not having host mode or guest mode this entire time hasn't been like a deal breaker. I definitely don't think it's a huge deal, but providing more tools, more resources, and to make the Turo business portal, meaning the Turo website, as business friendly as possible is definitely something that I think a lot of hosts will appreciate. Another change is one that I have been wanting for literally 4.5 years, ever since I joined the Turo platform, and that is a shift and overhaul of the messaging system that Turo currently uses. If you are a Turo host, or if you're even just a renter of Turo, you may have noticed that the Turo messaging system is incredibly outdated. Number one, you can't delete messages. That isn't a huge deal, but if I accidentally send something by mistake, which I've definitely done before, it's certainly something that's annoying. You also can't send pictures in the Turo messaging, which is incredibly annoying because whenever a guest needs to send you a photo of their driver's license, they're not able to do that in the actual Turo messages portion of the app. They have to instead navigate to an entirely different section, and I kid you not, probably 75 to 85% of renters have no idea how to go about doing that. And the third gripe that I've had with Turo messages over the years is the inability to automate the Turo messaging system, meaning that if you want to send a message out through Turo, you have to actually physically type it out or alternatively copy and paste it. There is no ability to schedule out messages, though there have been some solutions solutions that have come out over the years. For example, CarSync is, in my opinion, one of the best tools out there for Turo. They do offer automated scheduling messages through a third-party software, but Turo has never given hosts the ability to do this within Turo itself. But this is changing because this is one of the other updates that Turo has announced in their recent newsletter. You can see it right here. It says modernizing messaging, and then it says we're excited to bring key improvements to Turo messaging, making it easier for you to communicate with your guests and be more efficient as you scale your operations. First and foremost is scheduled messaging, and this is huge. So in this excerpt here, you can see that Turo talks about how soon you will have the ability to not only schedule messages in the Turo app, but you'll also have the ability to create messaging templates. That way your entire messaging system can be automated. The one big game changer here is the fact that it does say that you can also schedule messages based off of events that trigger a message response. So for example, you can either A, send a message out at a specific day and time. So if somebody books your car, you could send a message as soon as it's booked out. If somebody booked your car in advance, you could then send a message 24 hours before the rental. That would be considered a more traditional scheduled automated message. But the game changer here, I think, is the ability to send a message based off an event that triggers that message. And this is something that no third-party sites currently offer for Turo hosts. What this means is that if, for example, you're a remote host like I am, meaning you don't meet your guests in person, they have to send you a picture of their driver's license as well as a selfie photo of them holding their license next to their face. If you're able to send a message based off of that event, then you could automatically send a message the moment that these two photos are added, which, to be honest, will save a lot of time and a lot of headaches. Now, like I mentioned, there are third-party messaging software solutions that do offer the ability to schedule out automated messages for Turo. CarSync is, in my opinion, the best option out there for this, but to be able to do this within the Turo app, I think is huge, and I think it will be a huge time saver for a lot of hosts out there that spend a lot of time messaging their guests. Then if we scroll down from here, you can see another huge change in the messaging portion of Turo, and this is the ability to add photos into the messages of the Turo app. It says here, our host community has asked for this feature for a while, so later this year, you and your guests will be able to include photos in messages, making it easier to show guests exactly where your car is parked, any need to knows about your car, and where to find the lockbox. Now, this of all of Turo's announcements will be the biggest game changer because in my years of being on Turo, I probably think that 30 to 40% of all of the questions that I get could have been answered with a photo. But because of the fact that Turo messaging doesn't support photos, I have to describe whatever they're wanting to ask questions about, which really just confuses everybody. So the ability to host photos in the trip messages section of the Turo app will be huge. It will save a ton of hosts, a ton of time, and it honestly will be a pretty big game changer. Now, up until this point, I have found a handful of workarounds that I've been using. For example, I oftentimes will take photos of things and then I'll host them on the image sharing platform Imager and then simply send the guest the link. I've done that a number of times with success, but the ability to attach photos directly into the messages will be incredibly convenient. Next up, you can see improving visibility into the claims process. Now in this section, it basically says that Turo is going to be providing an easy to track method for hosts so that you can track the progress of your claim rather than have to email Turo customer support in order to get an update. Now this is one of those, I think, funny additions to Turo because Turo is framing it as, hey, we're making it super easy for you. This is what we're doing for you. We're doing you a favor. But in reality, I would be willing to bet that Turo is implementing this because a lot of their customer support representatives are wasting time answering emails for things that simply could be answered if Turo was a little bit more transparent about this process. So I definitely think that this is one of those things that Turo is doing more for themselves and they are spinning it as if they're doing us a favor. Either way, transparency is always a good thing, and I'm always welcomed to efforts to make things more transparent. With that being said, I do think that Turo's claims department has gotten really good over the years. I think that they have made huge strides in improving it, and so the fact that they are continuing to improve it, I think, is encouraging. Next up is investing in new business management and pricing tools, and in this section, Turo basically talks about two efforts that they'll be implementing. Number one is the ability to get more detailed information for tax purposes, and number two is to give more information to hosts regarding how they can price their vehicles. Now, the vehicle pricing feature is one that I am specifically reluctant on because of the fact that Turo's automatic pricing feature that they've had for a while now is incredibly flawed. It's very inaccurate. And so Turo will definitely have to prove that they have the ability to accurately price cars for hosts. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle this. Again, this is another feature that CarSync does offer, and I'm not affiliated with CarSync. I just love their product. So if you're somebody who's wanting to gain these types of insights for the time being until Turo releases this feature, then I would definitely check out CarSync. They're very, very helpful with this type of thing, but it will definitely be interesting to see how Turo rolls out this feature, how accurate it is, and of course, how helpful it is as well. And then last but not least, boosting app usability with dark mode. And it just talks about how hosts like to use dark mode on their devices and that Turo will now be accommodating to that. So that's the end of the positive changes that Turo is implementing. To be honest, I think that this is really great news. I'm always really happy to see that Turo is listening to their hosts and is making changes, even if they seem like small changes on the surface. I think it's always a good sign that they're listening to their community, they're adjusting their business accordingly, and they're trying to make things more convenient and more streamlined and more passive for Turo hosts, which I definitely think the messaging additions will do. Next, we move on to the bad news. Now, this is not going to affect every Turo host out there, but the ones that it will affect extremely severely. Now, for those of you who don't know, Turo has had a program for a long time called the Commercial Host Program. And basically what this meant is that you could be a commercial host on the Turo platform, and you could use the Turo platform to get guests. You could use Turo marketing to attract new customers, but that's really kind of where your relationship with Turo ended. You could create your own fee structures, you had to use your own insurance, but you still had to pay a cut of your earnings to Turo, though it was a significantly smaller portion. You weren't able to use the Turo claims department. You were able to actually decline guests from renting your car, so it was kind of up to you to vet guests before they rented the car. So it was kind of like you used Turo for their technology and their marketing, but that's basically it. Now, my theory as to why Turo had this program was to allow for Turo to attract more cars, because if Turo had more cars on the platform, they could make more of a conscious effort to get more guests, and then they could grow from there. But Turo announced just a couple of days ago that they are actually ending this commercial host program. In the email sent out by Turo a couple of days ago, it says Turo is focusing on peer-to-peer hosting. We've made the tough decision to end our commercial host program with important changes starting on March 15th. We value your business and appreciate the great experience you've offered guests. We hope you'll continue using the Turo platform by transitioning to our peer-to-peer product. If you haven't already, please reach out to our sales team who can help you make this change. And then goes on to say that on March 15th, commercial host listings will be restricted from receiving new bookings. Later this spring, any remaining upcoming trips with commercial host listings will be canceled. We expect this change to take place in May or June, and we'll let you know when we have a firm date. Contact sales to continue hosting through our peer-to-peer product. Now, what's important to note here is the fact that a commercial host is not the same as a host with an LLC. You can absolutely be a host using their peer-to-peer product while still having an LLC. In fact, many hosts who are considered peer-to-peer hosts still have an LLC protecting their business. Now, why I think that this is incredibly big is two reasons. Number one, this is of course really bad news for commercial hosts. It means that they cannot operate on the platform, or they have to transition to the peer-to-peer product, which means that they'll have to take a significant pay cut, which, to be honest, if I had to guess, I would think a lot of commercial hosts just wouldn't think it would be worth it. But of course, time will tell. They'll also have to play by Turo rules, meaning they will not be able to conduct their own fee structures. They will have to give more of a cut per trip basis. Turo will be able to control who books their cars. It really does change the game for all of the commercial hosts out there. But where I think that there's a huge silver lining here is the fact that I think for every other peer-to-peer host, this is considered to be pretty good news. The more commercial hosts that are on the platform, I think, number one, take guests away from regular peer-to-peer hosts, and number two, I think that it also muddies the water and creates confusion. Because if a guest rents with a commercial host with a totally different fee structure and then books with you with the Turo fee structure, that's going to create a lot of confusion, and that just simply isn't good for Turo long term. But the one thing that I do think is important to remember here for every single host that watches this video is I think that what has happened here with commercial hosts even though I think it is a positive thing for most peer-to-peer hosts out there, I think it reminds us that at the end of the day, we do not control Turo. It doesn't matter if you have 5 cars, if you have 100 cars, if you have 200 cars. You do not control Turo, and it is incredibly important to not put all of your eggs into the Turo basket. In the case of these commercial hosts, they got a 4-day warning from the time that they were told the commercial host program was ending to the time that Turo told them they would be restricted. 4 days. This email was sent out March 11th, and Turo has announced that March 15th is the day that they're closing this program. That is an incredibly short period of time and leaves really nobody with any time to prepare. And this exact same thing could happen to any one of us on the platform, which is why, number 1, I have multiple streams of income, and I encourage you to do the same. Number 2, I have not over-leveraged myself with debt. Always be careful about how much debt you're taking on for the sake of expanding your Turo business. And number 3, have an exit plan, because if something like this was to happen, you should be prepared and you should know exactly how you would react. Ultimately, like I said, I do think that this is a good thing for most Turo hosts out there, and I think it will help all of us get a little bit more bookings. But I think it is a grim reminder that anything can happen on the Turo platform. You do not have any control of Turo, and your Turo business could potentially disappear in the blink of an eye. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gave you some valuable insight into these new Turo policies. Let me know your thoughts down below on what you think of these new policies, what your concerns are, what you're excited for. I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.